Welcome to my books and storytime by mybooksummary.com. Why Are We Yelling? By Buster Benson. We've all been there. Locked in an argument that seems to be going nowhere, voices rising, frustration mounting, and no one actually listening. Whether it's a disagreement at work, a family debate over dinner, or a full-blown ideological war online, conflicts are everywhere. And let's be honest, most of us are not great at handling them. We either avoid them like the plague, get defensive, or bulldoze through them with sheer stubbornness. But what if there was a better way? What if, instead of treating conflicts as battles to be won, we saw them as opportunities to learn, grow, and connect? Enter Why Are We Yelling? By Buster Benson, a book that redefines the way we think about arguments. Instead of trying to silence conflict or win every debate, Benson urges us to embrace disagreement as a vital part of human interaction. With a mix of humor, psychology, and practical wisdom, he helps us understand why we argue, what our brains are doing in the middle of a heated debate, and how we can turn those yelling matches into meaningful conversations. It's not just about keeping the peace. It's about making arguments work for us instead of against us. So let's dive into the book, unpacking its key ideas in a way that will, hopefully, make you rethink your next argument and maybe even enjoy it. Chapters of the book. The science behind arguments, why we're wired to disagree. Before we can change how we argue, we need to understand why we argue in the first place. Benson explains that our brains are hardwired for conflict. It all goes back to survival instincts. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors weren't arguing about politics or whether pineapple belongs on pizza. They were fighting over food, shelter, and safety. Disagreement was a life-or-death matter, and our brains evolved to react to conflict as if our very survival depended on it. Fast forward to today, and those same instincts kick in when your coworker criticizes your idea in a meeting or when your uncle posts something ridiculous on Facebook. Your brain perceives it as a threat, and suddenly you're either ready to attack or run for the hills. Benson introduces concepts like cognitive biases, mental shortcuts our brains take that make us overconfident, dismissive of opposing views, and terrible listeners. Confirmation bias, for instance, makes us cling to information that supports our beliefs and ignore everything else. The key takeaway? We're not as rational as we think we are, especially in the heat of an argument. The power of curiosity, the secret weapon for better arguments. One of the biggest game changers in conflict resolution, according to Benson, is curiosity. When we enter a disagreement with a defensive mindset, we shut down opportunities for real dialogue. But if we approach conflict with curiosity, asking questions, genuinely wanting to understand the other person's point of view, we transform the argument from a battlefield into a conversation. Benson gives us practical ways to cultivate curiosity. One technique is to reframe statements as questions. Instead of saying, "That's wrong," try asking, "Why do you think that's true?" Another strategy is to practice active listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak, but actually absorbing what the other person is saying. It sounds simple, but in the middle of a heated argument, listening can feel like lifting a 100-pound weight. The good news? With practice, it gets easier and the results are worth it. The art of productive disagreement, turning conflict into collaboration. Now that we understand why we argue and how curiosity can help, Benson introduces a powerful concept: productive disagreement. This isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about engaging in it in a way that leads to better outcomes for everyone involved. Instead of seeing arguments as a zero-sum game, where one person wins and the other loses, we should aim for conversations where both sides walk away with a greater understanding. One of the best techniques for productive disagreement is looping for understanding. This means restating what the other person just said before responding. It forces us to truly listen, and it makes the other person feel heard, often diffusing tension immediately. Another strategy is to find common ground before diving into differences. When people feel like they're on the same team, they're much more likely to engage constructively. Why we fear conflict and why we shouldn't. Many of us avoid conflict like it's the plague. We fear hurting relationships, looking stupid, or getting emotionally overwhelmed. But Benson argues that avoiding conflict is actually far more dangerous than engaging in it. Suppressed disagreements don't just disappear. They simmer, building resentment and misunderstanding over time. Instead of fearing conflict, we should embrace it as a chance to deepen relationships. Benson uses examples from workplaces, marriages, and social movements to show how the best outcomes often come from the most uncomfortable conversations. The trick is to approach those conversations with the right mindset, openness, curiosity, and a willingness to learn. The bigger picture: how changing the way we argue can change the world. In the final section of the book, Benson zooms out to show how better arguments can improve not just our personal lives but society as a whole. In an era of political polarization, social media outrage, and cultural divisions, our ability to engage in healthy disagreement is more important than ever. The same principles that help us navigate personal arguments, curiosity, active listening, and productive disagreement, can be applied to larger societal conflicts. Benson calls on readers to become conflict fluency advocates, spreading these skills in workplaces, communities, and online interactions. It's an optimistic vision, one where we don't just yell at each other from our respective corners but actually come together to solve problems. Final thoughts: Why Are We Yelling? Isn't just a book about arguing. It's a guide to becoming a better thinker, communicator, and problem solver. Benson's approach is refreshingly practical, filled with humor and real-life examples that make the concepts easy to apply. He doesn't just tell us to be better at arguing. He shows us how, step by step. One of the biggest takeaways is that conflict isn't something to fear or avoid. Instead, it's something to embrace, an opportunity to grow, learn, and connect with others. By changing the way we engage in disagreements, we don't just improve our own lives. We contribute to a healthier, more understanding world. Benson's writing is engaging, relatable, and packed with insights that make you rethink the way you handle conflict. It's a book that makes you laugh, nod in recognition, and, most importantly, want to do better the next time you find yourself in a heated debate. Recommendations: If you've ever found yourself regretting how you handled an argument, this book is for you. It's an excellent read for anyone who wants to improve communication skills, strengthen personal and professional relationships, navigate workplace disagreements more effectively, engage in social and political discussions without losing their mind, develop a mindset that turns conflict into opportunity. For those looking to take it a step further, Benson suggests practicing these techniques in everyday conversations, even in low-stakes situations. The more you flex your conflict fluency muscles, the stronger they get. So, the next time you find yourself in an argument, pause, take a deep breath, ask a question instead of making a statement, listen instead of preparing your counterattack. You just might be surprised at what happens when you stop yelling and start truly engaging. And that, my friends, is the not-so-secret secret to better arguments. Now go forth and disagree wisely. Stay tuned for more enlightening content. Head over to www.mybooksummary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share the magic with friends. And let's grow together through the power of books and interesting stories.